Jack Morris stared at the massive alien ship hovering above the Nevada desert. The ship was black and shiny, reflecting the bright sunlight. It had been there for 3 days. The aliens called themselves the Zenith, and they had a clear purpose. They wanted to find the most resourceful species in the galaxy through a series of tests. "Mr. Morris," said the small floating device in front of him. Its voice sounded almost musical despite being artificial. "You have been chosen as Earth's representative for Challenge 3, shelter building." Jack swallowed hard. He was just a regular engineer from a small town in Ohio, not someone who should be competing against aliens. The government had picked him because of his award-winning designs for houses that used very few resources. At first he thought it was a joke. "The rules are simple," the device continued. "We will take you to a trash dump on our moon. Using only what you find there, you must build a shelter that could keep a human alive for 30 days. You will compete against 7 other beings from different worlds." Behind the floating device stood 3 Zenith observers. They were tall and thin with shiny scales that changed colors when they moved. They had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces. They watched Jack with an intensity that made him nervous. "What happens if I win?" Jack asked, trying to sound brave. "Your species will move to the final round of testing. The ultimate winner will receive technology that will advance your civilization by 500 years. The device paused. "Do you accept?" Jack thought about his daughter Lily, who had just started college. He remembered his wife Corinne, who had died 3 years ago but had always believed in him even when he didn't. He thought about all the problems on Earth: climate change, running out of resources, and constant fighting between nations. "I accept," he said firmly. The tallest Zenith made a gesture that might have meant approval. "Get ready. We will transport you in 6 hours." As Jack was taken back to the military base that was now humanity's center for alien communication, General Patricia Allen walked beside him. "That was brave, Morris," she said. "But we need more than bravery. We need you to win." "I know," Jack replied. "I'll try my hardest. You can talk to our scientists for the next 5 hours. They have information about what we know of Zenith. Technology and the other species you'll be competing against?" Jack nodded. "I need to know what kind of trash might be in an alien dump. And I need to understand what the Zenith think makes a good shelter." "We're working on that already," Patricia said. "One more thing, our experts think these challenges are about more than just the stated goals. The Zenith are studying how we think and solve problems. So it's not just about building a shelter," Jack said slowly. "It's about showing them who humans are," Patricia confirmed. "Make us proud." 6 hours later, Jack stood in the transport room. He had a backpack with only the clothes he was wearing and a small personal kit allowed by the Zenith rules. No tools. No technology. Nothing but his knowledge and his hands. A blue light surrounded him, and the world disappeared. Jack appeared on a gray, dusty surface. The gravity felt lighter than Earth's, maybe about 70% as strong. Above him hung a huge planet with rings, filling a quarter of the sky. The rest of the view showed unfamiliar stars and 3 small moons, but what really caught his attention was the landscape in front of him, mountains of thrown-away materials stretching as far as he could see. Twisted metal frames, broken panels, tangles of wires or tubes, and countless objects he couldn't even recognize. It was an alien junkyard. A technology garbage dump bigger than anything he had ever imagined. "Welcome to the challenge arena," announced the familiar mechanical voice. The translator device floated nearby. "This place contains waste materials from 17 civilizations collected over 900 years. Your building area is marked by the blue line." Jack saw a shimmering blue line forming a large square about 200 meters on each side. Inside it was a random pile of junk, looking no different from the surrounding waste. "You have 15 Earth days to finish your shelter. The air, temperature, and radiation are kept at levels safe for all competitors. Food will be provided regularly." The device showed images of 7 other beings, his competition. They ranged from a short, 6-limbed creature with skin like rock to what looked like a floating collection of crystals. None looked anything like a human. Your time starts now. As the translator floated away, Jack took a deep breath. First things first, he needed to see what he had to work with. After 4 hours of careful searching, he had found several promising things. Many of the metal pieces were similar enough to Earth metals that he could guess their properties. There were sheets of a clear material stronger than any glass he'd ever seen. Most exciting was a collection of what seemed to be damaged power cells, still holding energy but thrown away for some reason. He also watched his competitors. The rock-like being was simply piling materials into a rough dome. The crystal entity was doing something complex with various liquids it had collected. Others were using methods he couldn't even understand. By the end of the first day, Jack had sorted his materials into groups: structural pieces, potential power sources, insulation materials, and unknown but interesting. He'd also drawn a rough design in the dust, a modular structure that could be expanded as he found more useful materials. As he ate the food paste provided by a small floating drone, Jack watched the ringed planet rise higher in the sky. The temperature was dropping quickly, and he realized his first challenge would be creating a shelter, warm enough for the night. Using pieces of reflective panels and what appeared to be insulation material, he made a simple lean-to against a stable pile of junk. It wasn't pretty, but it would keep him from freezing. As he curled up in his makeshift shelter, Jack thought about the true nature of the challenge. The Zenith wanted to see human problem-solving and creativity. He needed to show them not just technical skill, but the adaptability and resourcefulness that had taken humanity from caves to space in such a short time. Tomorrow, he would begin building something no alien had ever seen before. Jack woke up cold but alive in his simple shelter. The ringed planet was now low on the horizon, giving way to a strange purple dawn. He had 14 days left to build something that would impress the Zenith aliens. He decided to spend the morning exploring more of the junk piles. As he climbed over hills of broken machines and twisted metal, Jack noticed patterns. Some areas had mostly metal parts. Others had what looked like computer pieces. In one spot, he found containers that might have held liquids. This isn't random, Jack said to himself. The waste has been sorted somehow. This discovery made his search much easier. He focused on areas that might have building materials and power systems. By midday, he had collected enough useful items to begin real work. Jack chose a flat spot near the center of his assigned area. First, he needed a strong base. He found several flat metal panels that fit together well. For the frame, he used what looked like support beams from some alien structure. They were light but very strong. The biggest problem was connecting everything without proper tools. Jack solved this by finding bent pieces of metal that could work as clamps. He also discovered a sticky substance in some containers that hardened when exposed to air, a kind of alien glue. As he worked, Jack kept an eye on his competitors. The rock creature was still piling materials, but now Jack could see it was secreting some kind of cement from its body to hold everything together. The crystal being had created a beautiful structure that seemed to grow like a plant. The others all had different approaches based on their own biology and knowledge. I need to use what makes humans special, Jack muttered as he fitted two panels together. We're adaptable. We see patterns. We repurpose things. By the end of the second day, Jack had created a basic floor and the beginnings of walls. His structure was square, about 4 meters on each side. Not very big, but enough for one person. The real challenge was making it functional on the third day. Jack found something exciting, a broken device with a screen and control panel. After careful study, he realized it was some kind of environmental monitor. Though damaged, parts of it still worked. With patience, he managed to get the temperature sensor functioning. He installed this in one wall of his growing shelter. Now he could at least know how cold or hot it was getting. Small victories were important. The fourth day brought another discovery, a stack of thin, flexible panels that seemed to absorb light on one side and emit heat on the other. Solar collectors, they were cracked and inefficient, but they still worked. Jack spent hours figuring out how to connect them to The power cells he'd found earlier. By the fifth day, Jack had a basic structure with 4 walls and a roof. It wasn't pretty, but it was solid. The solar panels provided enough power to run his temperature sensor and store extra energy in the power cells. He had even created a simple air filtration system using materials that looked like mesh screens and fans from some cooling device. Jack was proud of his progress, but he knew it wasn't enough. The Zenith wouldn't be impressed by just a box with some basic systems. He needed to show human creativity. On the 6th day, disaster struck. A small meteor shower peppered the junkyard moon. Jack watched in horror as one of the alien competitors, a tall, insect-like creature, lost its shelter to a direct hit. The Zenith observers arrived quickly and transported the alien away. 1 down, 6 competitors left. The meteor shower made Jack realize his shelter needed better protection. He spent the next day adding a second layer to his roof and walls, with a small gap between layers. If something penetrated the outer shell, the inner shell might still hold. He also angled the walls slightly so objects might glance off rather than hit directly. By the 8th day, Jack's shelter had taken on a more complex shape. Rather than a simple box, it now had angled walls and a sloped roof. Inside, he had created a sleeping area, a workspace, and storage for the food the Zenith provided. His power system was improving. He had found more cells and connected them in a way that stored energy more efficiently. The true breakthrough came on the 9th day. While digging through a pile of what looked like broken machinery, Jack found something that made his heart race. A small robot arm, similar to those used in factories on Earth. It was damaged and missing parts, but the basic motors still worked. Jack spent all day extracting the arm and studying it. By nightfall, he had figured out how to connect it to his power system. Now he had a tool that could help him build more precisely than his human hands alone. With the robot arm's help, Jack's progress accelerated. He created a better air circulation system. He improved his power grid. He even built a simple water collection system that captured the moisture that sometimes fell as a light dew during the cold nights. On the 11th day, another competitor failed. The floating crystal being had created a beautiful structure that suddenly collapsed when the temperature dropped too low. The Zenith took it away without comment. Learn from others' mistakes, Jack told himself. He added thermal regulation to his list of priorities. As the 12th day began, Jack looked at his creation with pride. It wasn't just a shelter anymore, it was a home. A human home built from alien trash. It had power, air filtration, water collection, and temperature control. It could withstand meteor strikes and extreme temperatures, but Jack knew he needed something more to impress the Zenith, something uniquely human. As he sat in his shelter that night, looking at the ringed planet through a window made of that strange clear material, he had an idea. Humans didn't just build things to last, they built things that could grow, adapt, and change. For the final days of the challenge, he would make his shelter smart. Jack woke up on the 13th day with a clear plan. To make his shelter truly impressive, he needed to make it smart and adaptable. Humans had survived on Earth because they could change and adjust to new situations. His shelter needed to do the same. He started by improving the robot arm he had found. Right now, it could only move in simple ways. Jack spent hours connecting it to his power system and adding a basic control panel he made from parts of the environmental monitor. By midday, he could use the arm to pick up and move small objects, but Jack wanted more. He remembered seeing something that looked like a broken computer in one of the junk piles. He spent the afternoon searching until he found it, a cube-shaped device with connection ports that might work as a simple brain for his systems. Getting back to his shelter, Jack carefully connected the computer cube to his power grid. Nothing happened at first. Then, after adjusting some connections, a light flickered on the device. It was working, at least partly. Now for the hard part, Jack said to himself. He needed to connect all his shelter systems to this central brain. With no proper tools or wires, this was difficult. Jack used thin strips of metal as conductors and more of the alien glue as insulation. It was slow, careful work. By nightfall, Jack had connected the temperature sensors, power system, and robot arm to the computer cube. He created a simple control panel using parts from various broken devices. It wasn't pretty, but when he pressed different spots on the panel, the systems responded. The 14th day began with a surprise. The Zenith announced that a test would happen that day. The environment around the building sites would become very cold for 6 hours. Any shelter that couldn't maintain safe temperature would be eliminated. Jack rushed to improve his heating system. The solar panels collected energy. Well, but they wouldn't work during the cold test if it happened at night. He needed better insulation and a way to store heat in a pile of soft, fibrous materials. Jack found something that worked like fiberglass insulation on Earth. He packed it between the double walls of his shelter. For heat storage, he filled containers with a dark liquid he found that seemed to hold heat well. Placing them around the inside of his shelter, the cold test began at noon. Jack watched his temperature sensor as the outside dropped rapidly, becoming colder than Antarctica in winter. Inside, his shelter started to lose heat, but slowly. The insulation was working. Jack turned up his heating system, which directed energy from the power cells to heating elements he had salvaged from various devices. The temperature stabilized, then slowly began to rise to a comfortable level. Outside, he could hear strange cracking and breaking sounds through his window. Jack saw that the shelter built by the octopus-like creature was developing ice crystals on its surface. But it seemed to be holding. The shelter built by a furry alien with 6 legs was not doing so well. Parts of it were breaking in the extreme cold. After 6 hours, the temperature returned to normal. The Zenith observers came to inspect. The 6-legged alien's shelter had failed completely. Now only Jack, the rock creature, and the octopus-like being remained in the competition. With 2 days left, Jack focused on making his shelter adaptive. He programmed the computer cube to automatically adjust temperature based on outside conditions. He connected his water collection system so it would activate when sensors detected moisture in the air. Most importantly, he created a system where the shelter could reconfigure itself slightly. Using the robot arm and some movable panels, the shelter could change its shape, opening sections to collect more light when needed or closing up tight during dangerous conditions. On the 15th day, Jack found his most valuable salvage yet. Deep in a pile of what looked like communication devices, he discovered a small drone. It was damaged, missing one of its hovering engines, but parts of it still worked. Most importantly, it had a functional camera and sensors. Jack spent all day carefully removing the useful parts from the drone and connecting them to his computer system. By evening, he had created something remarkable: external sensors that could detect approaching storms, temperature changes, or even meteor showers. Before they hit, now his shelter didn't just react to problems, it could anticipate them. When Jack tested the system by throwing small pieces of metal near the sensors, the shelter automatically closed its outer shields and diverted power to protective systems. The final day of building arrived. Jack made last adjustments and improvements. He created a manual override for all systems in case the automatic features failed. He added a backup power system. He even improved the living space inside, creating a more comfortable sleeping area and better storage. By noon, his shelter was complete. It didn't look impressive from the outside, just a strange-shaped metal structure with various panels and protrusions. But inside and within its walls were systems as complex as any modern Earth building, all made from what others had thrown away. The Zenith announced that building was now complete. The testing phase would begin. Each shelter would be subjected to various challenges: extreme heat, cold, radiation, impacts, and more. Any that failed would be eliminated. Jack sat inside his creation, nervous but proud. Through his window, he could see the rock creature sitting immobile in its solid dome and the octopus-like being swimming in the liquid-filled chambers of its strange bubble structure. "Let the testing begin," announced the translator device. Jack took a deep breath. "We're ready," he said, patting the wall of his shelter. He wasn't talking to the Zenith. He was talking to his creation, which now felt almost alive with all its systems working together. Show them what humans can build from nothing. The first test was about to begin. The first test began with a sudden increase in temperature. Within minutes, the air outside became as hot as a desert at noon. Jack watched his temperature sensors climb rapidly. The rock creature seemed unbothered by the heat, but the octopus-like being's water-filled habitat began to bubble. Jack's shelter detected the heat and automatically adjusted. The outer panels shifted to reflect more sunlight. The cooling system, made from salvaged parts of what might have been alien refrigeration units, kicked into high gear. Inside, the temperature rose slightly but remained comfortable. So far, so good, Jack said to himself. He was pleased that his adaptive systems were working without his input. His shelter was thinking for itself. After 2 hours, the heat test ended. All 3 shelters had passed, though the octopus being had clearly struggled to keep its watery home from boiling. The next test was unexpected. The ground began to shake violently, an earthquake. Jack's shelter swayed and creaked. He had built it with rigid connections, not thinking about ground movement. For a moment, Jack feared his shelter would collapse. Then something surprising happened. The computer system detected the problem and adjusted. The robot arm, which Jack had connected to key structural points, began loosening certain connections, allowing the shelter to flex rather than break. Jack watched in amazement as his creation saved itself. He hadn't programmed this specific response. The computer had combined its programming for different scenarios to create a new solution. When the shaking stopped, Jack inspected his shelter. There was minor damage, but everything important still worked. Through his window, he saw that the rock creature's dome had cracked but remained standing. The octopus being's bubble structure had bounced around but was intact. All 3 remained in the competition. The Zenith observers made notes and moved on. The third test was more subtle. The air outside changed composition, becoming less oxygen-rich. Jack's environmental sensors detected this change immediately. His air filtration system increased its work rate, pulling in more outside air and filtering it more intensely to extract the available oxygen. Inside his shelter, Jack could breathe normally, though he felt the air becoming slightly thinner. He wondered if his system would be able to keep up if the oxygen levels dropped further. The rock creature seemed unaffected by the air change, apparently not needing oxygen the way humans did. The octopus being's habitat had its own air-water exchange system that appeared to be working well. After 3 hours, the air returned to normal. All 3 competitors had passed again. Jack used the break between tests to make improvements. He enhanced the flexibility of his shelter's connections, learning from the earthquake test. He also adjusted his air system to be more efficient. While working, Jack noticed something interesting about his computer system. It seemed to be learning from each test, adjusting its responses based on what worked best. He hadn't designed it to do this. The alien technology was more advanced than he had realized. The 4th test began at nightfall. All light disappeared, including the light from the ringed planet and stars. The darkness was complete. Then Jack felt it, a change in pressure. His ears popped painfully. The atmospheric pressure was dropping rapidly. This was perhaps the most dangerous test yet. Low pressure could cause air to rush out of any small gaps in his shelter. It could make his blood boil if it got too low. Jack's shelter responded instantly. Seals around doors and windows tightened. The structure compressed slightly, reducing its volume and limiting stress on the walls. The air system adjusted, maintaining internal pressure even as the outside became nearly vacuum-like. Inside, Jack felt uncomfortable but safe. His ears hurt and his skin felt strange, but he could breathe and move normally. Through his now tightly sealed window, Jack could barely see the other shelters in the darkness. The rock creature's dome seemed unchanged. The octopus being's bubble habitat had shrunk considerably, compressing to resist the pressure difference. After 2 hours, normal pressure returned. All 3 shelters had survived. The Zenith observers spent extra time at each shelter, examining how they had responded to this difficult test. When they came to Jack's shelter, they studied the adaptive systems with what seemed like increased interest. Their scale-covered bodies shifted colors rapidly as they communicated with each other. The final test began just before dawn. It combined all previous challenges. temperature swings, ground movement, air composition changes, and pressure fluctuations. While adding one more element, radiation, Jack's sensors detected dangerous radiation levels rising outside. His shelter had limited protection against this. Some of the metals in his walls would block certain types of radiation, but not all. Thinking quickly, Jack arranged the containers of liquid he had used for heat storage around his sleeping area. Liquids could sometimes block radiation. He also redirected power to create a weak electromagnetic field around the shelter. For 6 long hours, the tests continued. Systems failed and were rerouted. Power cells drained and had to be carefully managed. The computer made thousands of tiny adjustments to keep the shelter functioning and safe. When it finally ended, Jack was exhausted but alive. His shelter had taken damage but remained functional. Outside, he could see that the rock creature's dome had developed more cracks but still stood. The octopus being's habitat had changed color and shape but continued to function. All 3 had survived the final test. The Zenith observers gathered, their scales flashing with complex patterns of communication. After several minutes, the translator device approached Jack's shelter. Final evaluation will now commence, it announced. Each competitor will explain their design choices and demonstrate the capabilities of their shelter. Jack realized this was perhaps the most important part of the challenge. It wasn't just about surviving the tests. It was about showing the Zenith how humans think and solve problems. As he prepared to present his creation, Jack named his shelter Phoenix, a shelter that had risen from the ashes of discarded technology. He was ready to show the aliens not just what he had built, but why he had built it that way. The final judgment was about to begin. The rock creature went first in the final evaluation. The Zenith gathered around its dome-shaped shelter as the translator device hovered nearby. The rock being explained in its rumbling language how it had used natural principles from its home world to create a shelter that could withstand almost any physical damage. The strength is in simplicity, translated the device. A dome distributes force evenly. The materials I secreted between layers harden under stress, making the structure stronger when attacked. The Zenith observers touched the dome with their long fingers, examining the materials and design. They seemed impressed by the straightforward but effective approach. Next came the octopus-like being. Its bubble habitat was filled with greenish liquid where it floated comfortably. Through some form of technology, its thoughts were translated directly. My shelter uses principles of fluid dynamics, the translation explained. The liquid absorbs shock, regulates temperature, filters toxins, and provides all nutrients I require. The outer membrane is semi-permeable, allowing beneficial exchanges while blocking harmful elements. The Zenith studied the complex liquid systems with great interest, their scales shifting through shades of blue and green that Jack hadn't seen before. Finally, it was Jack's turn. The Zenith approached his shelter, which looked less impressive from the outside than the others. Its true value was in its systems and adaptability, not its appearance. My shelter is called Phoenix, Jack began, named after a mythical bird from Earth that rises from ashes to new life. Like that bird, this shelter was created from discarded things given new purpose. The translator device conveyed his words. As the Zenith moved around his shelter, examining its unusual shape and various external sensors, humans survive through adaptation, Jack continued. We don't have the strongest bodies or natural defenses, but we observe, learn, and adjust. This shelter does the same. It doesn't just protect against known threats, it learns from new ones. Jack demonstrated how the shelter could reconfigure itself, with panels shifting position and systems rerouting power based on different scenarios. The Zenith seemed particularly interested in the central computer system he had created from salvaged parts. The most important feature isn't visible, Jack explained. It's the relationship between systems. Each part communicates with others, sharing information and resources. When one system has a problem, others compensate. To demonstrate, Jack deliberately shut down the main power cell. Immediately, the shelter detected the problem and rerouted power from secondary sources. Lights dimmed briefly, but everything continued functioning. This shelter doesn't just maintain life, Jack said. It evolves. Each challenge makes it better as the computer learns and adjusts its responses. The Zenith observers communicated among themselves, their scales now flashing with rapid patterns of purple and gold. One of them made a gesture, and a section of Jack's shelter was suddenly cut open by an invisible force. Jack gasped. But instead of failing, his shelter instantly began to repair itself. The robot arm moved to the damaged area, pulling a panel. From a non-critical section to cover the breach, seals expanded to close gaps. Within minutes, the shelter had reorganized itself to function despite the damage. The Zenith hadn't just been testing the shelter. They had been testing its ability to handle unexpected problems after examining all three shelters thoroughly. The Zenith observers gathered in the center of the challenge area. For nearly an hour they communicated in their mysterious way, scales shifting through countless colors and patterns. Finally, the translator device approached. The challenge of shelter has been evaluated, it announced. All three remaining competitors have demonstrated exceptional qualities. The Zenith leader stepped forward, fixing all four eyes on each competitor in turn. The rock dweller has shown mastery of structural integrity and material science, translated the device. The water breather has demonstrated supreme efficiency in resource usage and life support. The human has revealed unexpected integration of systems and adaptive problem solving. Jack held his breath, waiting for the verdict. After consideration of all factors, the Council has determined that two species will advance to the final challenge. This was unexpected. Jack had assumed only one would move forward. The water breather and the human will continue to the final evaluation round, announced the translator. The rock creature made a low rumbling sound that needed no translation. Disappointment. A moment later, it was enveloped in blue light and transported away. Jack could hardly believe it. He had made it to the final round. Humanity still had a chance to win the advanced technology the Zenith had promised. The lead Zenith approached Jack's shelter. Through the translator, it asked a question that caught Jack by surprise. You repurposed abandoned technology without complete understanding of its functions. Was this not dangerous? Jack considered his answer carefully. Taking chances is part of human nature. We learn by trying, sometimes failing and trying again. Yes, it was risky, but the potential benefit was worth it. That's how we've always advanced, by reaching beyond what we fully understand. The Zenith scales shifted to a deep purple color. Interesting, most species avoid the unknown. They build only with familiar elements. Humans are curious, Jack explained. We see the unknown not as a threat, but as an opportunity to learn. The translator relayed that the final challenge would begin after a rest period. Jack would be returned to Earth to prepare. As the blue transport light began to surround him, the lead Zenith made one final comment. Your shelter was not merely a structure of materials. It became a system with emergent properties beyond its components. This is rare and valuable. We look forward to observing humanity in the final challenge. Jack found himself back in the Nevada desert, surrounded by cheering scientists and military personnel. General Patricia Allen pushed through the crowd. You did it, Morris. You got us to the final round. Jack smiled tiredly. We still have one more challenge to win. What do you think it will be? Patricia asked. Jack looked up at the sky where the Zenith ship orbited silently. I don't know, but I think I understand what they're really looking for now. What's that? They're not just testing our ability to build things, Jack said. They're testing our relationship with technology and the unknown. They want to see if we're ready to join them among the stars. As scientists examined the data from his shelter's performance, Jack wondered what the final challenge would bring. Whatever it was, humanity would face it with the same qualities that had gotten them. This far, curiosity, adaptability, and the ability to find value in what others had discarded. The greatest test was yet to come.